Good morning. How are you doing today, Oz?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you, Eric. How are you?
Man, I got to tell you what, I am so glad that you are doing this podcast because there's a lot of invisible things that have happened to broadcasters throughout the years. And this right here, it puts us out there in the front. And we're learning something about Little Haiti. And it's right here on American soil. I had no clue, dude, until I fell across this.
I know, it's crazy. Well, look, I mean, radio broadcasters do incredibly important work and service to the community. And, we found in the early 90s in Miami, 4 radio DJs got murdered one by one. They had shows where they played music, they played dancehall and merengue, but they were also talking about politics, and they were calling out the military regime in Haiti, where they'd actually come from. And they got all these threats, and there was a sense that there were spies in the community. But 4 deaths on the streets of Miami, unsolved, that really piqued my interest as a journalist, and so I had to dive in.
How did you get in with Anna? Because, I mean, she's a major piece. It's almost like you're waking up a sleeping bear by bringing her into this picture.
Absolutely. So Anna Arana is an incredible investigative reporter. She puts everyone to shame. I mean, she was in Colombia almost interviewed Escobar and was told she should leave town in a hurry. She covered the wars in El Salvador and Honduras, and so she's a real badass. She was in Miami in the early 90s, and she covered these crimes. And she wrote a report saying, justice hasn't been served, there should be a federal investigation. And I just happened across her report, and I called her, and I said, so what happened? And she said, nothing ever happened.
Wow.
And I said, well, would you consider partnering with me on a podcast? And she said, what are you? You're in your 30s, you must have been wearing diapers when these crimes were committed. I said, that's true, more or less. But I think we can be a good team. And so we went to Miami together and we worked on it for almost 2 years.
Do you look over your shoulder today? Because, I mean, you're bringing up some stuff that obviously, I mean, they went down because of a political reason. But, I mean, I would be looking over my shoulder every night.
Well, obviously I'm in New York City, which is a way away from Miami. But people did tell us, people who we wanted to interview, who said no to us, they didn't tell us directly, but they told us through third parties, look, this is still a little dicey. This is a little dangerous. The powerful people who were behind these killings were involved in drug trafficking.
Yep.
And they maintain an important hold on power in Haiti today. And so, of course, it can be a little scary for people. I mean, the fact that that's what happens when you kill people who speak out. It's not just that you silence them, you silence the whole community. And that's what's really chilling.
What is the most interesting part of the journey when you have to step back into the past to feed the present? Because, I mean, is it the investigative reporting? Is it the writing? Is it the releasing of it? I mean, because, I mean, it's all of it has to take place, but you yourself are changing with each episode.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, funny enough, the thing which you might think would be most boring was actually in many ways most interesting, which was in Florida, there's very, very extensive depositions, and the depositions are available in the court library. You can't get them online, but if you go to the court library, you can see them. And so reading all these depositions really gave us a fascinating picture of what happened. And so that was really interesting. The other interesting thing was there were all of these rumors in the community at the time that the killers in some way had the protection of US intelligence because the CIA was very active in Haiti, very active in wanting to make sure that Haiti didn't turn communist like Cuba had. And so they had a lot of very bad people on the payroll. And unfortunately, we didn't find a smoking gun, but we did find these hints that the CIA were involved in monitoring the community in Miami, in particular this charismatic priest who led it. And they were paying people who were involved in murders, at least in Haiti. And so one of the big open questions of our series that we sadly couldn't resolve was, these were political assassinations, but who knew what when? Is it possible that somebody in US intelligence gave a green light?
I'm so glad that you did not hide away from the CIA, because so many stories have been written about how they get into communities and create chaos. And then from that chaos comes a change in rulers and leadership. Yeah. And I'm so glad that you got listeners involved in this, because it opens up our heart for today.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. If you look at what happened recently in Haiti, the president was assassinated.
Yep.
2 of the people who have been indicted, one of them is a former FBI informant and the other is a former DEA informant. I mean, the fingerprints of U.S. intelligence agencies on the Caribbean and Latin America are everywhere. The big question, the big scandal would be, we know what these guys do in Latin America. Is it possible they could be active in the U.S. and even subverting U.S. law to achieve their aims in Latin America? And we didn't answer that question, but we raised it.
I want podcasters to go and listen to this. And the reason why is because I understand that podcasting, we are the voice. We get to represent the people. But they've got to go in and look at the deeper story that you're putting into Silence the Radio Murders. Because this thing right here is a tool of you've got to watch out what you say, what you investigate, because someone is always on the lurk.
Someone is always on the alert. That's exactly right. And, it takes courage to be a journalist all around the world. And there's a terrible moment of journalists, Evan Gershkovich, the Wall Street Journal reporter in jail in Russia. But what happens if you don't have people who have the freedom to speak out is you end up with a whole society getting broken. And so, I know it's very politicized, the media right now in the US, but at the same time, I think everyone, regardless of political stripe, should be very committed to making sure that anyone can say what's on their mind without fear of violence, let alone murder.
Does this inspire you to dig deeper into other stories about broadcasters and journalists? I mean, because what about Alan Berg of Denver, Colorado at KOA Radio? All of us, something went really wrong there as well.
Yeah, that's a fascinating case with all kinds of, hints of, potential conspiracy as well. Yes, I'd be very interested in looking into that one.
See, that's what I love about you, man. You are not afraid to chase a story. But in reality, and let's speak broadcaster to broadcaster here, or journalist, and what is the time? Because most people think, go in there, bang it out, put it out. And I just don't see this podcast of yours being that type of thing. You put time and energy into this.
Yeah, this was a 2-year investigation. It was a 2-year investigation. But what's interesting is I think there's different ways you can present stories, right? Like, I think if we presented this as a, human rights report, it wouldn't have really grabbed people. But the truth is, yes, there are all these big implications, but it's also a very fascinating and I think delicious murder mystery and spy story. So, we have to meet our audiences where they are and entertain them, not just force stuff down their throats. And so I really hope with this podcast, even if you're not that interested in the politics and stuff, you'll still enjoy it as a simple murder mystery. But that if you are interested in the political background, there's a lot of richness there as well. Do
you feel like you're living in a very lucky time in the way that, 5-10 years ago, it would have been just maybe a 15-minute story on 60 Minutes or in newsprint? My God, I mean, can you imagine telling this story on just a paragraph or 6 or 7?
No, you're completely right, and I mean that's the joy of audio, is that of course a 2-year investigation is very resource intensive and expensive, but at the same time you can record and edit afterwards. And I think as radio has evolved and podcasting has come into the mix, there are whole new audiences who are very interested in different types of storytelling. So it's really cool not to have to boil it down to just 15 minutes and to be able to spend 8 episodes, so almost 5 hours with the story.
Well, I hope that when the iHeartRadio Podcast Awards come out, the nominations, that your name is on that list, sir, because, I really, really love what you're doing with this.
Well, thank you. That really means a lot. Hopefully you can put a nomination in on our behalf.
Absolutely. Well, please come back to this show anytime in the future, because this story's ongoing. It's gonna grow and grow.
Well, I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me on.
Will you be brilliant today, okay?
You too. Thank you. Bye.